Happy Tuesday, everybody. It's a Tuesday. It feels like a Monday, or maybe it feels like a Wednesday because you're already into your work week after a long holiday weekend. Hopefully everyone had a great one out there in the world, and especially here in our beautiful state of Utah. What just spectacular weather, at least yesterday, where you had some cloud cover and then it would blow away. And if you were out camping, you probably maybe got sprinkled on, maybe got a little bit of a wind scare. But as far as I know, there was nothing like overly obnoxious in terms of frightening weather. And, summer has begun. Let's make it a great summer, people, all right? If you got kids, plan some stuff that you've never done with them before. If you don't have kids, get to places you've never been before. Tell your jobs, I'm going to get all my work done. I'm going to make sure that I pull my weight around here. But, man, I want to experience this summer. We are lucky to live in such a gorgeous state. Feeling good. There's a strange thing happening in the sports world right now that we have these cliches, right? Well, Major League Baseball is better when the Yankees are good. And NFL football benefits from when the Cowboys are relevant, football is better. Now, I push back hard on that one especially. But we have seen for the first time since I was a young lad, we have seen the New York Knicks in this NBA playoff seem like they're a team that might actually win an NBA championship this year. And the Knicks, obviously, Madison Square Garden is one of the sports meccas, and the Knicks are part of that legendary sort of building and the history in that building. And the Knicks swept their way through the Eastern Conference Finals to an NBA final where they will await either the San Antonio Spurs and Victor Wembanyama or the foul merchant himself, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. James, I was so bothered that I wasn't on the show at the end of last week when the numbers were actually coming out, when the percentages were actually being calculated on just how often the top players in the NBA, they fall to the ground on shot attempts. Because there's plenty of people who definitely don't do their best to maintain balance. And I don't even begrudge the average player trying to English up, to zhuzh up the contact that's happening. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, now back-to-back MVP, is seeing his sort of like we're in awe of you reputation. He has already become the villain. Okay, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will never win another MVP award. All right, book it, mark it down. It's not going to happen unless he completely alters his style of play, because the narrative on him has switched shortly after winning the award, which is pretty insane. Has switched from being like an acknowledgement of his excessive theatrics to now heavy criticism of that style of basketball play, of people talking about how this is bad for the game. And we do this thing all the time where we say, well, the game benefits from these major market teams being relevant and good. While baseball, isn't it so much more interesting when the Dodgers and the Yankees are good? Okay, I guess maybe for you. If you're in the Red Sox too, your Red Sox,
yeah, they're one of them.
Are one of those teams where people say, yeah, baseball's better off when the Red Sox. And I think honestly that baseball is better off when the Red Sox are good, way more than when the Dodgers are good.
Yeah, my question whenever I hear that is better for who? Because everyone who's in a region, whether local market or the surrounding regions of a team in one of those sports, is excited and loves that sport. But ESPN, it's not better for them because they only want to play the hits. They only want to play They only want to play the game where you talk about the Lakers. You come up with a way to talk about the Lakers and LeBron every day, even if there's nothing to talk about. They want to come up with a way to talk about Dak Prescott and the Cowboys every day, even if there's nothing to talk about. They want to find a way to talk about the Yankees and Dodgers every day, even if there's nothing to talk about. Yeah, sure, it's not very good for them when the Knicks, and the Knicks are one of those teams too. It's not very good for them when the Knicks and the Lakers and the Yankees and the Cowboys aren't in the finals or the championship, right? In the World Series, whatever it might be. But it's perfectly fine for everybody else. And that's not just saying those teams have lots of haters. That's saying people love the sport when the team that they root for is good. And that's always going to happen.
So is the NBA better off when its MVP is known as a savage competitor who will fight you, who will bite your face off, who will battle through contact, who will, wave the trainers off, who will go through the flu game, whatever? Or is it better off when your MVP is a guy that justifies journalists going through and plugging into Grok or into Chat GPT or whatever and saying, how many times does this guy fall on shot attempts? And it's like, oh, wow, 20% of the time he hits the deck after he takes a shot. That is absurd.
Yeah, whether there's contact or not, or if it's martial contact.
I mean, I joked about it on Twitter. Like, if you have the ability to leap but not to land, that's a bad thing.
Yeah, you're probably going to get hurt a lot.
You're going to end up getting
he hasn't
hurt.
been yet.
And there was the sort of secondary conversation after that all that stuff came out. Like, I think Wembanyama, who people will criticize Wembanyama for sometimes, like exaggerating contact against him, and fine, okay. But the numbers showed that he falls down 5% of the time. That still feels like too much. But the secondary conversation that came after, like, here's what these numbers are, is that you'll notice if you go back, a lot of guys that this was their style of play, eventually they get hurt because the human body is not supposed to land on hardwood floor after it jumps into the air over and over and over and over. And like, we're talking about hundreds of times during a season.
Yeah. Do you remember Dwayne Wade when he was had his Converse shoe? There's a great commercial of him hitting the deck a bunch of times, and then it said fall down 7 times, get up 8.
Yeah.
He blew out his knee like a year later, and he wasn't necessarily a flopper, but he was that guy like pump fake and then lean into it kind of thing. But he was always on the ground. I'm not sure he had that was what he did the rest of the time, at least falling on the ground type of thing. He would pump in and lean into the defender kind of thing, which is outlawed now. I'm not sure he did that much after he blew out his knee because of what you just said. Like, okay, great. Allen Iverson was another guy who hit the deck a bunch, but not necessarily for flopping. He just kind of played with the reckless abandon.
Yeah, he sort of just had like a reckless, out of control style sometimes.
Ja Morant does that similarly. He plays absolute reckless abandon. He doesn't necessarily hit the floor a lot, but you watch him, you're like, are you in control at all? And then he makes a spectacular play. Yeah. Like
he sort of lives his life with that reckless abandon. He's a little bit crazy. When you dial it back into like the 2-time MVP who's still pursuing this year an NBA championship, and you've seen really over the course of 2 weeks now the narrative, I won't say flip because there were already plenty of people around the NBA who had called him a foul merchant and said that they don't like that style of play. But now it's just like you've almost been given permission to be really mad about it. And if you're a writer, if you're a pundit on television, it now can be sort of front of mind for you. And it's really odd to see. But I'm juxtaposing these two things where you look at it, it's like the New York Knicks they're a wagon right now. They are hyped up. Everyone is like, oh my gosh, the Knicks. And I think we're all okay because they haven't had a lot of success recently. I think we're all actually a little bit energized, weirdly, by the New York Knicks having a moment in the sun because it's been so long. And this will wear very thin very quickly if they're able to sustain it in any kind of way. But the New York Knicks are an exciting team right now, and it begs the question that I'm asking, is the league better off with the New York Knicks being in that conversation all the time. I think the league probably feels so because they're the number one media market in America. Does the average NBA fan, does the average Jazz fan feel like, yeah, you know what, the league's a lot more interesting when the Knicks are in it? I think actually, weirdly enough, the Spurs as a small market team kind of fit that billing for a lot of NBA fans. Like the league's better off when the Spurs are there.
Yeah, I think it depends on where you live, because if you live in Salt Lake City, for example, or in Utah, the surrounding areas, you feel some solidarity with the other smaller market teams, including the San Antonio Spurs.
Which for the Spurs is actually for me, kind of a complicated thing, because you've been open in the past as a franchise and saying like, yeah, we want to copy what they're doing down there. Like we love R.C. Buford's game plan. There was a time when the Jazz were just like open about the fact that look what the Spurs are right now with. This was the Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili years where the Jazz were just kind of figuring some things out. And they were just like, yeah, look what they do. We can do that because we are a similar market size. We have a similar sort of demographic and fan base. We can be that team. But I was always like, yeah, cool. But they're a team that's going to knock you out of the playoffs even when you get there. They should be a team. There's a rivalry there, but there's a certain amount of respect. So I don't know where a lot of Jazz fans net out on it. I think that the Spurs are generally respected on the franchise level all the way down to the player level for the most part, so to where a lot of NBA fans feel like, you know what, if the Spurs are there, it's good storytelling, it's a good narrative for the league, which doesn't make sense from their market size perspective. It's more their history and their success. The Knicks, it makes obvious sense from the market size. The Lakers, obvious sense. The Boston Celtics and things like that. And then I got to begging the question, all right, cool, yeah, what's good for the league? What's bad for the league? How much does the league commission? How much does the office? They're never going to admit these things publicly. But, like, is Adam Silver dancing a jig that the New York Knicks are in the NBA Finals? Probably yes.
Yeah.
On the opposite side of the same token, are they looking at their MVP now being criticized, being run through the ringer for his style of play, knowing that they have no control over his style of play, knowing that they have no way to really, truly influence whether or not SGA and by extension Oklahoma City continues to pursue greatness in this exact type of way? Because I would make an argument that if your MVP is a player that's involved in a lot of off-the-court or off-the-field scandal, that's bad for a league. If your MVP or the best player in your league is involved in some kind of like gambling conversation, that's terrible for a league. If your best coach is somebody who ends up in the news because of, you know, some domestic violence problem or something horrible like that, that's bad, not just for the coach, not just for the team, not just for the fan. It's the whole league. You're just like, oh, that's not good. And I wonder, while the league office is like awesome, we get to trot out a bunch of old Knicks footage from their glory days, and we're going to make sure that there's all these guys sitting courtside that were part of teams that either won championships long ago or were some of the greats that never were able to get over the hump. I mean, we've seen Patrick Ewing sitting there like, dang, how come we weren't able to do exactly this?
Yeah, the 90s Knicks are in full force at the Garden. Everyone but Charles Oakley, of course, because James Dolan has
banned him.
Because of his stupid deep state he's got going on down there. But we digress from that. But you got John Starks courtside. You got Patrick Ewing courtside. Of course, going back to their actual glory days, you got Walt Clyde Frazier he's on the local broadcast, so he's at every game. Like, yeah, they're in full force.
So play this game real quick with me, James. Good for the league, bad for the league. All right? The New York Knicks being right now the best team in the East. From a league perspective, good for the league, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's no-brainer. Good for the league.
Okay. The Oklahoma City Thunder being, until proven otherwise, the Oklahoma City Thunder being the best team in the league, period. The defending champs, the model franchise for now. Good for the league, bad for the league.
I mean, I think it's good because it represents the parity that you can have in this league, even if they win back-to-back championships. And I know you're probably going, wait, how's that parity? Because a team in Oklahoma City won back-to-back championships. That's parity.
No, I actually think you're right about that. I think that even though, again, the sponsor narrative and the market size narrative probably doesn't 100% fit with like you benefiting from Oklahoma City, a small market team. Oklahoma, by the way, one of the 3 states in the country that only have one professional sports franchise.
Yeah.
One elite. Do you know what the other 2 are? There's 3 states in the United States
just one
that have one professional team in the Big 4. Do you know who it's Oklahoma is one.
Huh. I don't know off the top of my head.
877
That is something that they would seem like I would just know, though.
Well, if I had given you even like a minor, like I'm trying to stump you, 877-353-0700. If you know the answer to that question, I'll give you some James Peterson bonus points.
Louisiana, right? No, they got the Saints and the Saints and the Pelicans.
And the Pelicans.
Never mind. Okay, I'll keep thinking.
Yeah, and one is kind of easy to remember and to figure out. The other one like stumped me. I was like, oh wow, I forgot because they used to have. Here's a hint: they used to have more than one, and now they only have one.
Oh, okay.
877-353-0700.
I'll let some text come in before I.
And don't chat GPT it. Don't Google it.
It's probably going to be wrong anyway because AI is not giving you 100% correct stuff anyway. I think
especially on sports.
I think I told you this off air. I had to write in promos for games during Utah football season, and I'm writing one for their game against Kansas State, and Utah had never played Kansas State before. Except when you do an AI search, it told you that they played them twice. When you actually check Utah's website, it says they never played them. What AI was confusing is University of Kansas Jayhawks, who they had played a couple of times pre-Big 12 era, and the Kansas State Wildcats. Obviously 2 different teams, but AI apparently thinks they're the same. So that you get those kind of mistakes all the time now.
Jordan on the text line, Memphis is not a state. Don't say Memphis at us. The states that have one of the Big 4 professional franchises.
Not cities.
And
states.
By the way, with respect to MLS, you're out of this right now. Okay?
Yeah, they'd be like maybe 5.
NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL.
Yeah.
Okay?
Tennessee, by the way, is not correct because you got the Titans.
You have the Titans also.
State.
And it sounds
and
like
you got the Predators.
And it sounds like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Maybe
they're going to be a 4-sport state.
Yeah, they're going to be a 4-sport state.
3 of them in Nashville, and maybe Memphis. Maybe Grizzlies move to Nashville too.
Memphis is going to have to move to Nashville eventually. Nashville is a great town. It is a really cool city to go visit. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'd be fun. I've never taken my kids to Nashville because, like, a lot of the stuff you can do, like, you can't take your kids to a honky tonk. Unless, I guess, it's during the day. They're playing live music all day. Anyway, but we have one.
Someone
we have one correct answer so far. One. So I'm proud of all of you. By the way, I'm proud of all of you for not just Googling this.
I'm going to check it before to see if it's one that I would have guessed before I say it out loud here.
It's not Nevada because Nevada now has an NFL team and an NHL team, and they're getting a Major League Baseball team.
And they're getting an NBA team soon. Vegas is going to be a 4-sport city in the next 5 years probably.
And if certain reports are to be believed, Nashville will be at least 3, maybe 4, and Salt Lake City sounds like it's going to be 3 or 4.
Okay, so you're talking about Adam?
Yeah, Adam has got it right.
Oklahoma, Oregon, and then I'm going to say Washington, right?
No,
because they got the Kraken now.
That's right.
Because you said it used to be more than one, so I was thinking Sonics.
So very similar. Think of another state that had an NBA team that then moved out because that's what happened to this.
Kansas City. Kansas.
Incorrect. Kansas has
come on now.
a bunch
The Royals,
of franchises.
Yeah. Well, they're Missouri too. They're on the Missouri side.
I
You got Royals. Kansas technically has 0.
You
got Royals.
You're right.
You got Chiefs and Cardinals all in Missouri.
So Kansas doesn't fit because they're actually,
but
it's actually Missouri.
If we want it, because it's border town, if you want to say they're Kansas, then they got 2.
And the question is who has 1, not who has 0.
So is it Missouri that had the St. Louis Hawks?
It's New Jersey.
Oh, because they got the Devils.
They have the Devils, and they used to have the Nets.
That's right.
And now the Nets obviously are not even in the same state as the Knicks. They're in the same city as the Knicks.
Okay, but if we're going to – okay, here we go. I know that I'm pretty sure, I don't know, that the Kansas City teams are on the Missouri side for now. And maybe the Chiefs are moving to the Kansas side here soon. So if you want to say those are all Missouri because maybe they're technically on the Missouri side of the border there, then sure. But if you want to just say, if you want to put them as Kansas because it's a border town, who cares which side you're on? You could say they're in either state. Missouri only has 1 team, right? The Cardinals.
Well, they have 3 though. If you're going by
if you go by I'm just saying if we right.
Yeah, I mean
Kansas. Depends on how you want to look at it. They either have 0 or they have 2.
Kansas, they really have 0.
Yeah.
For the sake of this trivia question, they have 0 because
I'm making it too complicated.
No, but it's confusing because it's Kansas City.
Yeah.
But it's Kansas City, Missouri. It is complicated.
Yeah.
But in any case, the answer.
So
Oklahoma's got only the Thunder. Oregon's got only the Blazers. And New Jersey has only the Devils now.
Did you say it was 3 or was it 4? I thought you said
it's 3.
Okay.
It's 3.
So those are the
3 states with only 1 professional franchise in the Big 4.
Now,
to go back to what we were originally talking about and not just making this whole segment about the trivia question, when your best team is in one of those states where that's all you've got as a state, that's all you've got from a pro sports standpoint. And I know college sports now are pro sports, and Oklahoma's got some of the big ones. Oh, did you find another one?
No, just someone texted again correcting me because I've been completely wrong on all of these. The Blues are in St. Louis too.
Blues, yeah.
So St. Louis has 2. So I just don't listen to me at all. Is what we've learned in this segment on this particular thing.
So Missouri's got all 4. No, they have 3 of the 4. No, they have
everything but NBA.
They have 3 of the 4 sports, but 2 teams in 1 sport, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But when you've got a small market team that it is like the lone pro sports franchise, major pro sports franchise in a state that is the home of your reigning MVP and the home of your returning champions, I feel like in an odd way that is also good for the league. It's good for the league in a different way than the Knicks being relevant again is good for the league. But I think it's starting to be undermined, and we are watching in real time the erosion of people's acceptance of and enthusiasm for that particular brand of basketball, that particular team's success. I'm reading the text line, and I think we just got by William Smith.
I don't think – see, but they're called New York. So I don't –
So we either have to go with Kansas City or Kansas City teams, and in which case they're 2.
Yeah, but that's also Kansas City is in Missouri, so that's fine. But I feel like it's okay to say that the Devils are the only one in New Jersey because they're not the New Jersey Jets. They're not the New Jersey Giants. It's like the Chicago Bears might be in Indiana, but can Indiana claim the Bears? Not. I mean, they're Chicago. The name, it's in the name. But, I mean, whatever.
I may have just derailed an entire segment.
But there's at least
after
2
a long weekend.
There's at least 2 if you want to be really technical about hey they actually play their games here, but the name is not where they play their games. There's at least 2, maybe 3.
Uh, More relevant to the actual topic at hand here, Derek, who is one of our most frequent texters, and we always appreciate him. We're getting mad about a guy playing the game the way the NBA has set it up. How many times have Lillard, George, Harden, KD literally jumped into a defender? SGA is playing the game. It's the ref's job to call the foul correctly. And he doesn't complain about not getting calls. To me, the entire league full of hypocrites that don't want to acknowledge that this whole thing is the league's fault. Here's the thing. Referees are supposed to adjudicate, but what we have never asked for from a good faith, realistic standpoint in sports is we have never asked for the referees to be the thing that fixes, corrects, makes a game right. We've always wanted it to be coaches and players that carry the weight of making the game good. And if the league has set up a situation that rewards this type of play, absolutely that deserves to be criticized. The same way that the league hypocritically got mad at the Utah Jazz for tanking in a way that was slightly more creative than tanking when you have set up a system that incentivizes tanking. Like, you're right. That is kind of a BS stance for the league to take, for fans in other cities around the league to take. Like, oh, they're ruining the integrity of the game by doing this. It's like, knock it off. The San Antonio Spurs are on the verge of an NBA Finals way ahead of schedule because they did the same thing. So I'm not saying that there's anything like the NBA, just like every other pro sports league, but it's maybe especially the NBA, is certainly prone to its hypocrisies. But from a fan standpoint, I do not, and I appreciate that you do, Derek, if that's how you do it. I do not sit there and watch SGA and the famous De'Aaron Fox non-contact flop that the referees then did screw up by calling the foul. I do not then let SGA off the hook. As a fan, I don't say, oh, well, he's just playing the way the game – he's just playing the game the way that he's been encouraged to play it by the rule set. I don't look at things that way. When Major League Baseball was not testing for performance-enhancing drugs in any kind of meaningful way, my reaction was not like, well, of course, then they should take it. That's not correct. For me, that's not the way that you handle these things. There's the responsibility for a player to compete in good faith and, in my opinion, playing the game of basketball with an intention not to manipulate his way to a free throw line, to a foul shot, but to try to score the ball in like the actual run of play. To me, that's better. That's, again, we're talking about these ethereal concepts of good for the league, bad for the league. Like, he's obviously good for the league. He's selling a bunch of jerseys. I don't think it is in the league's best interest, though, to have its best player in that conversation. Kobe was never really in that conversation. Now, he was in other conversations about popularity and whether you should be rooting for him. Michael Jordan was never in that conversation about, like, now, did he get too many calls? Yes, he did. But was it because he campaigned aggressively for them with his body language? Not like SGA.
There's always been dialogue with referees and guys, various players being way too obnoxious about it. And you could apply that to the greats in Jordan's era and before that, and Kobe's era and before that. But this is a relatively new thing where we are, like you say, with your body trying to oversell contact that isn't there. Like, well, this, and SGA is doing it at a level probably maybe higher than anyone else has done, maybe other than James Harden.
For me, when we're about to watch the Soccer World Cup, and we're all excited about it, okay? I know that the World Cup is not a league, but I will tell you, and I will say this when we're talking World Cup soccer while we're watching it, to me, it is bad for the league that the flopping in soccer, especially on the international stage, has been normalized to the extent that it is. Like, to me, that's a bad for the sport kind of a thing. Now, we're way too far past the point of no return with that in international soccer. It is just deeply ingrained in international soccer. major MLS soccer is less like that, but there's plenty of it in MLS soccer as well. It's just that's the sport. And I will say till I die that is part of the reason why the average American sports fan has a harder time with soccer than they do with some of these other sports. You can't don't tell me to respect the best player in the game when he's having an aneurysm over somebody's hand accidentally glazing his face. They flop, they fall, they get the spray, they do that thing where they're just like, can you believe he touched me? Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Can you believe it? And you think your TV's on repeat, that it got stuck in some kind of glitch because they're freaking out so much. You're I will go to my grave thinking that's something that affects the popularity of the sport of soccer in the United States. And we're seeing that level of flopping from the league's MVP in the NBA at the same time that we're watching another a long sleeping giant in the East potentially waking up. And it just, to me, was a really interesting sort of juxtaposition, a little bit of a black and white here, where it's like that right there is something that the league is probably very excited about. And this over here is probably something that the league is like, are we going to have to do something about this too? Like we did with the tanking thing? We tried to address the flopping thing because of Dwayne Wade, and now we're going to have to do it again because of SGA? I don't know.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. Is it good for the league if the Thunder pull out this series? It's 2-2. Could go either way. Is it good for the league that both teams have the exact same color scheme? Is that good for the orange and blue skies? Who are you talking about?
Well, thankfully, the Thunder have sort of a weird – what's the official name of their blue?
Yeah, it's not quite the same color blue.
Anyway, we got to take a break. Gordy Chiesa is going to join us on the show today because obviously that's what we do on Tuesdays with our resident NBA guru. We've got a very robust daily dump today, so I'll probably spend some extra time on that. John Forsland from Sports USA, the former Seattle Kraken play-by-play man who also spent time with the Carolina Hurricanes. Are we going to see a Western Conference Finals sweep in the most unexpected fashion in the NHL? We'll talk about all of it on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in our good friend Gordy Chiesa, resident NBA guru, basketball insider of the highest order. Gordy Chiesa, welcome. How was your weekend?
It was really well. How about yourself?
It was awesome.
Traveling back home.
Yeah, it was great. Got home from the PFL duties in Brussels, Belgium, and I'll tell you, there's something special about returning from overseas on like a very American feeling type of weekend and holiday. I love flying home. I've done it several times where you fly home on the 4th of July or you fly home. This was, I think, the first time I did it on Memorial Day weekend. There's a good feeling to it, Gordy.
Yes, there is. Absolutely. Whenever I went to China, I came back from China back to the States. I literally kissed the ground in the Bay Area.
Yeah, it's a good feeling. So hopefully everyone out there had a great weekend. I want to get to these playoff series, but I also all NBA teams announced. Any surprises on this for you?
Yeah, a few surprises where, especially the third team, with Chet Holmgren making the third. Here's the third team: Therese Maxey, Jamal Murray, Jalen Johnson, Jalen Duren, and Chet Holmgren. Snubbed, I thought, might have made the third team would be Scotty Barnes of the Toronto Raptors. He's played great the whole year, and his team has improved tremendously. So I was surprised at him not making that team.
When we talk about the All-NBA teams, there's so many things now associated with this where guys have contract incentives and escalators baked into whether or not they achieve All-NBA honors. I mean, it's like as high a stakes as you can get for a postseason or an off-season award.
Very much. Add to that, also branding is a huge factor. For the listeners, the NBA All-Stars are 24 players. Now, the NBA selections comes down to only 15 players, where it's first, second, and third team. So it's really the 15 top players in the NBA versus the All-Star game, which is the top 24 players. And sometimes there's injuries. Those guys are selected but don't play in the game. So quickly, here's the second team. Jaylen Brown of the Celtics, Kawhi Leonard of the Clippers, who is healthy this year, Donovan Mitchell of the Cavs, Kevin Durant of the Rockets, and Jalen Brunson, we know about him, for the Knickerbockers. The first team is Kate Cunningham, Luka Doncic from Slovenia, Victor Wembanyama from France, Nikolai Jokic from Serbia, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from Canada. So think about it, Sean. The first All-NBA team, 4 to 5 players are from foreign countries.
That's wild.
That's how good. Yeah, that's how good the rest of the world is. The only guy being, obviously, is Kate Cunningham. Just quickly, a synopsis is that there was 2 guys that made All-NBA first, second, or third team that were picked in the second round. They are Jalen Brunson, pick number 33 back in 2018, and Nikolai Jokic, previously mentioned, pick number 41 at 2015. There was 2 guys picked as the first pick of their draft. They made All-NBA. They are Victor Wembanyama, the first pick in 2023, and Kate Cunningham, the first pick in 2021. The illustration is that, yes, when you're picking high, number 1 in the lottery, the chances of that guy being a tremendous player are high. But also, it doesn't mean that if you picked in the second round or non-lottery picks, that guy can't be an elite player also. And jazz basketball, quickly. Karl Malone made All-NBA either first, second, or third team 14 times, and John Stockton made it 11.
Wow.
Which shows you how hard it is.
Gordy, as it pertains to the Jazz, what is more likely, that a player currently on the team will be an All-NBA player, or that the upcoming number 2 overall draft pick, assuming that's where they pick, will be an All-NBA player at some point in their career? What's more likely?
The second pick of the draft. That's how talented these guys could be. They are. Yeah, second pick of the draft. So, but again, it's a maturation process. Here's the question philosophically. When does a player who has a really enormous talent merge with the experience of playing in an NBA and leading your team to go minimum deep in the playoffs? When does it happen? No one knows the answer. It's the great unknown. But the NBA is a talent league. You need X amount of degree of talent, then the toughness, then the skill factor, then your trusted allied teammates into a winning atmosphere. So that's the question. Number 2 in the draft this year is going to be a knockout talent and also a guy that could lead his franchise, whoever it's going to be.
Gordy, how much conversation is there, in locker rooms with teams about the sort of the politics around these awards? Because again, these are very impactful. There's contract implications and legacy implications and things like that. How much conversation is there in the back rooms of the NBA about like, man, how did our guy get snubbed? What's going on here? For players, obviously there's some high stakes.
Yeah, very much. Where the coaches and management, they're very conscious of it, is that they're trying to it helps the franchise. That you have, for example, Detroit Pistons, they have 2 young guys that are all NBA selections. Now, they lost in the second round to the Cavaliers in Game 7 at home. But the fact of the matter is that they drafted very wisely, meaning Kate Cunningham at number 1 in 2021 and Jalen Durham at number 13 in 2022. So, Sean, the Pistons, back-to-back years, selected the right guy. And now 3 or 5 years later, this shows what happens. So it does matter who you draft, and it does matter how you accelerate that person's skill set and also the maturity index. And that's based on your own personality, but also who's around you every single day counseling you and who your teammates are.
Gordy Jay is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking about the all-NBA teams that are released. No Utah Jazz players, obviously, have made the first, second, or third team this year. If one guy on the current roster were to be next to do it, you already said the most likely scenario is that the upcoming draft pick will probably do it, but who would be the guy that's on the roster now that you'd like, all right, if I had to bet on somebody, it would be him?
Ace Bailey.
Okay.
Yeah, Ace got talent. Ace, he's young. He's only 20 years old. He's got talent. He's got a winning spirit, too. So Ace someday, with the skill set and his maturity factor, and he's a tremendous young talent. So he'd be the guy that I think that someday, if things fall into place, could be that.
All right, let's talk about the actual basketball still being played. You've got Game 5 tonight, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, 6:30 Mountain Time for the tip. But whoever wins this series is going to be going up against a very rested Eastern Conference team because the New York Knicks swept their way through the Eastern Conference Finals. What do you make of New York right now, Gordy?
They're playing at a high level. They enjoy each other. The roles are absolutely defined. That's a huge factor. So the Knicks have talent. Everyone understands who their main guys are. And then the secondary players who are starters are really outperforming the rest of the players that they're competing against. So, for example, besides Jalen Brunson, we know how great he is. Again, he's all NBA performer. Karl-Anthony Towns is the second cog of that. He's pass happy as a big guy. So at the beginning of his career, he hardly ever passed the ball. Now he's averaging over 6 assists per game. And whenever he has that numbers, in playoffs, the Knickerbockers are 7-0. Now, but it's the other guys that are playing spectacular in their role. And that's why they're winning. And that's Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Josh Hart. So all 3 of those guys are two-way performers. That they can score the ball, they can defend their position, and they all rebound, and they're all gritty happy. So that's why the Knicks right now have won 11 straight playoff games. Besides the brilliance of the first 2 guys I mentioned, it's those other 3 guys that have outplayed everyone else they've played against. So basically, they've outplayed, out-toughed, outshot, out-stealed, out-rebounded their rivals. And that's why the Knicks could be NBA champions. But let's not forget, though, the Thunder and the Spurs, those guys are Game 5 tonight. It's going to be an absolute battle, and whoever gets out of the West is going to play against Knickerbockers. It's going to be really a great series, Sean. Besides the talent, our television partners in the NBA, they will be ecstatic that the Knickerbockers are going to play in prime time for the first time since 1999. And that just shows you how interesting it is. I'll put it in context. About 1999, the last time Knicks were in the finals, Josh Hart was 4 years old. Karl Anthony Towns was 3 years old. Mikal Bridges was 2 years old. Jalen Brunson was 2 years old. And OG Anunoby was 1 year old. And Sean O'Connell was 16 years old. And James Peterson was 7 years old. I'm putting it all in context.
I remember it well.
You were 16 years old. You were in high school trying to get into fights all the time.
I was not. I was trying to avoid getting in fights all the time back then.
No. You're talking to us now, James Peterson and I.
Right.
And your closest friends, the audience.
Yeah,
You're
fair.
getting in fights. You're throwing elbows in pickup games, and you were tackling people in football games.
Well, I was trying to tackle people in football games. I wish I had been better at that too. We were talking about that to start the show. The narrative that comes with, wow, you've got the number one media market, you've got a legendary franchise, you've got them back on the verge of like true championship relevance. Good for the league to have the New York Knicks here. On the flip side, you've got two small market teams in the Western Conference. I still make an argument that both are good stories for the league because they display, to James Peterson's point he made earlier, it displays that there's real parity, that you don't have to be a major market team in order to, win at a championship level. Obviously, the San Antonio Spurs have a long history of proving this, and I think they're a respected enough team and franchise in the league that when they're good, it is quote-unquote good for the league. OKC's interesting right now because we're seeing a lot of pushback, a lot of complaining about especially Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's style of play. Foul merchant keeps getting thrown at him, and all this conversation about him feigning contact, flopping, etc. That's not good for the league. When your MVP is involved in those types of conversations, that's not necessarily good for the NBA. But, you've been around the game forever, Gordy, and you've coached guys that are like this. You've coached guys that are on the opposite end of the spectrum. What can be done about this? Again, an MVP level player having a style that is maybe somewhat problematic.
Well, here's the first question. Is he on your team? You love him. The opposition, you dislike him. Mm-hmm. As far as him drawing fouls, really, I'm gonna be on my team where the ability to get shouldered by the initial defensive player and then create contact by throwing his hands into the help defense creates fouls. Or when he gets bumped off balance, he goes into a theatrical audition as far as in Hollywood. I think it's really good. And it's up to the referees to make the call. Who gains the advantage? Was it the offensive player, meaning Shai, or was it the defensive player who didn't take away his dribble? So that it's more of interpretation by the referees. I think it's really good, Sean. Shai is an unbelievable, absolutely incredible player in this series right now. He's averaging 24.8 points per game and 10 assists, even though not shooting very well from the field. And so it's more on the referees to make the judgment call versus Shai changing his style of play. The Thunder are a tremendous team. They're a great organization. They hit the jackpot on most of their draft picks, both presently and also and future out, and so are the Spurs. So it's both teams that are small, very similar to the Jazz. Again, the Jazz hit the jackpot on Keontae George, absolutely. Hit the jackpot on Ace Bailey, and the second pick this year, the Jazz will hit the jackpot also. So the Jazz also are still in the building stages right now, but they're getting it correctly. And yesteryear, the Jazz Jazz basketball hit the jackpot all the time, especially on their second round draft picks. And that's why the Jazz went to the playoffs 20 straight years in a row. So not NBA champions, and that's the judge at the top of the apex.
Who wins Game 5, Gordy?
Yeah, tonight should be colossal. All right, Sean, in Oklahoma City Thunder, it's going to be tonight, the Thunder. And then it'll be Game 6 coming up back in San Antonio. Here's the question, see, right now, is that if the Thunder do win tonight, which they should, is that they need more from Chet Holmgren. So, for example, I'll put it in context. Chet Holmgren is an all-NBA player. He made third team. So this guy's got talent. Alex Caruso has more blocks than Chet Holmgren. So Caruso has 5 blocks in the series. Holmgren has 3. And that just shows you that Chet's got to get involved more of his team. Besides guarding Victor Wembanyama, they need more from him offensively as far as getting to the offensive boards, but also making shots right now. From the Spurs point of view, they need more perimeter shooting right now. So Stephen Castle, Dylan Harper, and Julian Champagnie, they're shooting from three-point range. I call it igloo shooting, meaning ice cold. They're shooting 12 for 62 from threes. So Victor Wembanyama's brilliance is absolutely front and center, but he needs more perimeter shooting from his teammates to keep the defense honest. I like tonight the Thunder in a hard-fought game as far as knocking out and then going to Game 6. And then, sure, my instincts tell me we're going to play Game 7 very shortly, too.
Gordy, what's your list today?
All right, list today, Sean, about triple-doubles. Don't you get the feeling that Wembanyama can get a triple-double at any moment? Besides points and rebounds, maybe blocks and maybe even assist. Here we go. The most career playoff triple-double games. I could have only 12 names on this list. Quickly, what's a triple-double game? A triple-double is recorded when a player registers 10 or more in 3 of the following 5 categories in a game. They are 1, points, 2, assists, 3, rebounds, 4, steals, and 5 blocks. Prior to 1974 playoffs, the NBA did not officially record steals or blocks. All right, triple-double in playoff games. It's very hard to do. With 5 in 12th place, 5, John Havlicek. In 11th place, Oscar Robinson with 8 triple-doubles. With 10th place, Wilt Chamberlain with 9, but we never know, Sean, about his block shots. All right, tied for 6, a 4-way tie with 10 career triple-doubles. They are Rajon Rondo, Larry Bird, Draymond Green, and Luka Doncic. 5th all-time with most ever triple-doubles, Jason Kidd with 11. 4th all-time, Russell Westbrook with 12. 3rd all-time, Nikola Jokic with 23 career triple-doubles, and you get the feeling that he might be on this list very shortly, the most ever. Number 2 all-times, he plays for the Lakers, LeBron James with 28, and the number 1 player with the most ever playoff triple-doubles is Magic Johnson. He did it 30 times in 190 games career-wise in the playoffs. Quickly, what about Jazz basketball? It only happened 3 times in the history of Jazz playoff basketball where a guy recorded a triple-double. The most recent was Ricky Rubio on 4/21/2018 versus the Thunder. John Stockton back in April 28, 2001 versus Dallas Mavericks at age 39 had a triple-double. And the longest ever triple-double was Ricky Green back in 1984 versus the Denver Nuggets. So there'll be somebody in Jazz basketball, hopefully soon, will get a triple-double to be on that list. Thus, that's my list of today.
Magic Johnson having more than LeBron, given LeBron's longevity, is actually pretty crazy.
Yeah, so LeBron's played in, as we speak right now, 303 playoff games. Magic played in 190. But Sean Jokic is the guy where, again, like Victor Wembanyama, when they get onto the court, whether it's playoff game or regular season, whether it's Game 7 or Game 25 in a regular NBA campaign, those guys are walking triple-doubles the way they play. But they can get in also assist and block shots and rebounds, and that's the most amazing thing about it, besides points.
Magic played how many years 13 years?
Yeah, 13 years, yeah. Wow. Yeah, 13 years. So he was an absolute force as far as in playoff games. Remember, he's passing the ball to Kareem and then passing the ball to James Worthy. You know, two of his unbelievable sidekicks besides Byron Scott and all the other guys on his team.
Crazy.
Crazy.
Gordy, you're the man. Love talking to you, sir. Thanks for your time as always.
Thanks, Sean. Peace out.
All right, we'll try to stay on clock here with a little double. It's the Sean O'Connell Show. The New York Knicks are back in the NBA Finals. The San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder are battling it out to see who will end up playing against them. The Colorado Avalanche were the best team in the NHL all year long and are on the verge of elimination. Sports are wild. But when we come back, I'm going to tell you why the top players in college football are soon going to increase how much they recruit an LDS athlete. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. playoff hockey, playoff basketball, regular season baseball. Spring football is happening if you're paying attention to that. I don't know how many people do. Not college spring football, but, professional spring football. And we march closer and closer toward the season that everyone here looks forward to, with end of summer, early fall, college football's return. Cannot wait for that. I got some things I want to discuss on the college football front as spring meetings are happening around the land. You had the Big Ten meetings, and they expressed their significant desire for a college football playoff expansion to 24 teams. There's less agreement, it seems, in SEC country about what the best model looks like. I want to get to all of that. I also want to remind you that you should have this number in your phone already. It's 801-850-9100. Do me a favor, now that it's one of these beautiful kind of spring, early summer days in the state of Utah, walk around your house, outside and inside, and take a close look at your windows. You probably haven't done this recently, all right? Look for moisture between the window panes. Look at the window frames. Maybe if you live in an old house, you've got aluminum frames. Maybe you've got wood frames. Look at those frames. See what kind of condition they are in. Put your hands up. Feel if there's any drafts coming through. Now, right now, those drafts are pleasant early summer air, but later in the year, that's going to be scorching hot, ruin your air conditioning type of air. You can't afford to have drafty windows. You certainly don't want to have ugly windows. So go take a quick little inventory of what your windows look like. And if you need help, 801-850-9100, Advanced Windows can come out. They'll send out a local sales crew. They'll send out a local expert to give you a quote on how much it'll cost you. $2,500 off, by the way, 10 windows or more when you mention ESPN 700. And then a local team, if you decide that's a good investment for you to make, is going to measure. They're going to make sure that they have everything dialed in. Then they're going to go manufacture them locally here in Salt Lake City. Then that local installation crew is going to come out. They're going to put your brand new windows in. It only takes about a day to get the brand new windows actually in. And then you're benefiting from a lifetime warranty that is covered by, you guessed it, a local crew and a local company. 801-850-9100, advancedwindows.com. The mayor of Sac Lake City, Nate Orchard, his business partner, Jake Weber. They've got the best windows in the business. They know it, and that is why they are willing to warranty your windows for the life of your home. Give them a call right now. But first, go around the house and look and make sure that your windows need to be reevaluated. And even if the ones you've got are in good shape, but you need some window coverings to keep that blazing sun out, they can help you out at Advanced Window Products with window coverings as well. They have financing options that help bring those monthly payments down, and you might even have a situation where you balance out your energy savings costs with the monthly payment on the windows. So it's like getting windows for free if you're in one of those dream scenarios. 801-850-9100, advancedwindows.com. All right, so a couple of things on the table right now in college football. There's the expanded college football playoff discussion that's happening. It's an off-season topic that is not going to be resolved until the votes happen later this year. But if a change happens, the change would presumably be for 2027, would be for next year's college football playoff. So there's a really strong chance that this is the last time we see a 12-team college football playoff. We just started this thing. We're not going to get a long run of it. And I'm very curious to know if we will look back someday and say, hey, man, 12 teams was actually kind of a good number. We told you last week that the Big Ten said, I want 24, and we're going to go with 24. Now, ESPN is pushing back and saying, guys, come on, we don't need 24. A lot of the more traditional voices in college football are saying we don't need 24 teams. I warned and cautioned that the Big Ten is probably going to get eventually what it wants because they are the power players in college sports right now. Not just college football, but college sports right now. The SEC spring meetings, there was a little bit less agreement about what the expanded field should look like. The official company line for the SEC, the Greg Sankey line, is we only want 16 teams in the expanded playoff. But there were several coaches that expressed that, yeah, we actually like the idea of 24. So maybe those coaches, and this is actually where I get really conspiratorial. From a conference level, the SEC is saying we only want 16. There are some individual institutions where their coaches, their athletic directors, maybe even their university presidents are saying, well, we actually like the Big Ten's idea better. My conspiratorial mind immediately goes to, well, how much is this people just wanting to stay in the good graces of the Big Ten Conference? Is there any of that where people are just like, you know what? The Big Ten is in control right now, and the Big Ten is going to be the body that decides what eventually happens. And what eventually happens, by the way, is not going to look like how it looks now. Maybe we get something that returns to the regionality of sports. More likely, we get something that looks like a super league that is comprised mostly of the Big Ten power players, the SEC power players, and we hope and we cross our fingers that Utah and BYU are invited to the party along with the West Coast teams that will be guaranteed their spot because some of them are already in the Big Ten Conference. So that's all on the table right now. The SEC has a little bit of disagreement in its own house, which, by the way, from an optics standpoint, doesn't help the SEC at all because I am helping drive this narrative, but there's a significant amount of narrative right now that the SEC is losing ground, not as rapidly as everyone else is, but they are losing ground to the all-powerful Big Ten at this particular moment. They are still in a position where they can snatch the respect back, they can snatch the accolades back, whereas for some teams that's a lot less realistic. For some conferences and some programs within smaller conferences that's wholly unrealistic. The SEC is still very much a player in this game, but they're not in the advantageous position that they found themselves in for decades and decades and decades. And part of their reaction to this is surprising to me because I thought it would be one of solidarity and one of like, we are all going to pull on the same rope. We're all going to make sure that our company line is figured out. I'm telling you, we want this. You're telling me, well, we might not want this. That's not good from a conference level. But it's kind of fun to watch the SEC maybe showing some of its warts because, again, for decades, they were the teams and the programs that kind of dictated how everyone else had to do their things. And they're probably squirming with the uncomfortable nature of not being so firmly in control. Now, another thing that's on the table and is going to be voted on by the NCAA competition committees and by the conferences and by all the decision makers in sports is, of course, this new eligibility model. Is it going to be age-based? Is it going to be a single transfer window? Is it going to be enforceable whenever you make a decision on this one way or another? And what I teased going into the break was teams all around the country are going to start recruiting the LDS athlete at a higher clip. Somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but not wholly, because here's the deal.
Not wholly? Was that on purpose?
WH.
Oh, with the
Holy.
W. Okay.
I'm mostly being facetious there, but if it goes through the way that a lot of people think it's going to, the age-based model where you have 5 years to play 5 from your high school graduation or your 19th birthday, whichever happens first, right? They want it to be an absolute kind of threshold. I don't know how enforceable that's going to be. I don't know how you're going to be able to tell kids, yeah, we don't have medical red shirts anymore. But I missed 2 years of my college football career, my college basketball career. I've missed 2 years of it because of injuries. Yeah, sorry. But we decided back in 2026 that we don't want 27-year-olds playing college sports anymore. And then someone's going to call a lawyer, and that lawyer is going to try to figure something out. So without diving too deep into the weeds on the legalese and the legality of what these changes eventually are, there is going to be, and there always was going to be, the same traditional loophole that has existed for as long as you have paid attention, as long as I have paid attention to college sports. Military service stops your eligibility clock. Religious service stops your eligibility clock. And BYU has long pushed back on the narrative that having older players is an advantage. And I agree with the argument. Like, if it was agreed upon that having 23 and 24-year-olds in college football was the best way to do things, then Alabama and Texas would have 23 and 24-year-olds on their team every single year and always would have had that. I'm curious if the COVID extension of eligibility and all these transfers and all this like more recent leniency has changed the consensus opinion on the value of advanced age relative to your peers in college football. Because there was a time where in college, if you were a hyper-talented freshman, you were still redshirting and you were sitting. And then kind of in the late 90s, unless you were an absolute freak, right, there was just an accepted sort of traditional threshold where it was like, dude, I don't care if you're the number one recruit in the country at your position. You're going to come here to Ohio State and you're going to pay your dues. And if you start as a sophomore, as a true sophomore, that's pretty incredible. You get into the 90s and the 2000s and you start having guys that are true freshmen really starting to dominate. And we kind of got rid of that sentiment that true freshmen shouldn't be playing elite level college football anymore, right? So, like, that was a very, very institutionalized, ingrained belief across every conference, every level for a long time. Like, don't let these guys play until they have paid their dues. And it just kind of evaporated, right? I'm wondering if the consensus opinion that, like, I don't want older players not good. I'm wondering if that has changed. I'm wondering if now that you've got Curt Cignetti with a bunch of 23-year-olds on his team at Indiana and an undefeated record, one of the best college football seasons ever, is like, you know what, there's actually something really good about having this level of physical and mental maturity in a college football program. And this reform that is being proposed is going to, like, put some limitations on that. Now, again, we're still talking about 5 years after you turn 18. So that's 23 years old. You can play when you're 18, when you're 19, when you're 20, when you're 21, when you're 22, and then by the time you're 23, that's when you have to be done, okay? We've had a bunch of 23, 24, 25-year-olds. Was there a serious advantage to that? I'm skeptical. I push back on it, right? The guy, what was his last name? Cam McCormick? The Oregon guy that transferred to Miami, played 8 years in college football, 9 years in college football. Like, he wasn't the best tight end in the country. He wasn't the best anything in the country. Now, maybe there's a situation where you've got a guy who is great and he's even greater because he's 25 still playing. Maybe you're a Utah fan or a Utah State fan who's like, man, I've watched a bunch of BYU guys that if they had to play before their missions and they weren't allowed to play when they came back from their missions, they never would have grown into the guy they ended up being. I am like pretty anti that whole narrative. I don't know many people, and I've known a lot of guys and followed a lot of guys who went on an LDS mission and came back to play football. I don't know very many that came back a better player than they left, or came back even the same player that they were when they left. Now, maybe the back end is where you get the benefit. And maybe there's some data, maybe there's some actual information out there where, yeah, you sacrifice a little bit when they come back when they're, 21 years old and they're still on mission legs. You sacrifice that year, but then they're 12% better than they would have been by the time they're 23, 24 years old. Maybe there's data out there. Again, if that data had existed for a long time, I think other teams would have modeled this. I'm curious, though, if now that the average coach in college football, not just a BYU coach, not just a Utah coach, not just a Stanford coach that recruits a lot of LDS athletes who've gone on missions, I'm wondering if the average coach now has coached guys that are 25 years old. After COVID, every coach in America had a guy that had 4, 5, 6 years of eligibility. Everyone's done it now. And in the case of Indiana that I use as the example, there were a lot of guys on that team that were 23 plus, right? Does Curt Cignetti, who everyone's going to try to copy Curt Cignetti, does Curt Cignetti say, yeah, part of the reason this team was so good is because I had 5 years of them at James Madison and 1 year of them at Indiana. I want that with everybody. I want the older, more mature player. I'm not convinced of this, but if it becomes a thing, the only loophole that is being left to exploit in this particular new model, this new proposal for 5 years to play 5 eligibility, is the religious service model. Gray shirts were a thing that became ubiquitous for like the mid-level recruit at places like Alabama, places like Auburn in the SEC. They would say to athletes, we want you, but we don't have any place for you right now. So we're going to stash you, but you're going to gray shirt so it doesn't count against your eligibility, right? So they would get a freshman that didn't even get to start his clock. And then those guys ended up being a little bit older when they graduated, but it wasn't a thing that Nick Saban decided was valuable. If Curt Cignetti decides it is, will Curt Cignetti not necessarily just recruit all the Mormons, but will he say, look, here's what I think you should do, kid. I want you to come play at Indiana. I want you to come play at Oregon. I want you to come play at Ohio State. I want you to come play here. And we're going to use the loophole that exists. And it's going to be good. This would be a good overall outcome, I think, for the college football community, for the college sports, and maybe for the world. Say, hey, because this is the only loophole I have, I can't medical redshirt you, but I want you to be a little bit older. I want you to be a little bit more physically mature. I'm going to have you do a service mission for whatever church you decide matters to you. I'm going to have you do a year of religious service.
Yeah, Not gonna recommend some military service for a couple of years here. Hey, why don't you enlist?
It's a little dicey right now. Yeah,
a little safer to do the church mission for whatever church you.
And I honestly think that like the risk of sending someone off to the military is a whole career, right?
Yeah, and there's certain like minimum years of enlistment requirements, right? That could be like longer than a couple years.
Lowry Markkinen, you can say, yeah, go do your military service, because in Finland they only demand like 1 year of compulsory service or something.
And you can, if you're a professional athlete living abroad, you can split that up over a few years.
Like that's a different scenario, right? Maybe this. Again, I'm almost tongue-in-cheek on this stuff, but also not, because what we have seen, if there is a new system put in place in college football for eligibility, and it becomes something that is sue-proof, is litigation-proof, then the next step will be for college coaches to find a loophole that they can use that makes sense for them.
Hey, kid, are you religious at all?
By the way,
do you like the military? Like,
by the way, I don't know that. Like, obviously, we have a ton of background on this stuff, like, because there's a system that has been in place for years.
Yeah. With
the LDS Church. It's just like you send them out, they're gone for 2 years, they come back. That system, by the way, has been drastically altered in recent years, where it's like, yep, you ship them out, and a year later they come back, and it's still considered a full mission. It's good. You ship them out, and they can talk to their mom every week now, instead of like that system has shifted pretty drastically. I don't know every single in and out of all the different details. Who's the BYU recruit that's going to serve the
Ryder Lions?
Ryder Lions going to serve a 1 year mission. Everyone's like, what? You can't do that. And it's just like, no, you can.
Yeah. It's unclear whether it's going to be, hey, hit his year mark. He says to his mission president, hey, I'm going home. Or if it's like the church says, make an exception here. That's this guy's doing it. This guy's doing a year. He doesn't have to voluntarily leave.
I don't know it. I don't know what the details on that are either. However, if the plan was to just just go and then come back after a year, I don't think that we would have heard that announcement. I don't think that we would have heard that as a plan.
Yeah. It's an interesting situation, but also it really doesn't matter. Like
It's not even our business.
The guy's taking there's a young man taking a year off of his life to serve other people and to serve his faith. Like, cool. That's great.
So apparently his older brother also did this.
Yeah, Walker, and before he joined USC.
And look, by the way, I'm not LDS. I didn't serve in LDS. I have a deep admiration for the missionary program. I think it's awesome, and I reflect. If you give 6 months of your life to a mission, serving others or your church or whatever, if you give 1 month to it, if you give 3, good for you. I'm not you got to make it 2 years, you're not returning with honor kind of guy. According to Google, Ryder Lyons and the LDS Church basically tailored this, and he said,
Okay.
I want to do a mission, but I want to do a 1-year mission. And they were like, all right, cool.
All right.
Okay, well, far be it from me then to say, no, that's not valid, that's not good, that's not enough. But, again, will this be considered by other teams, other programs, by anyone in college sports as something that is advantageous to the outcomes in your football program? BYU has used it as it has not been geared toward the athletic side of things. It was something that they had to overcome, not something that they benefited from, in my opinion.
Is certainly not what they intended to be. Hey, this will be a benefit to us.
No,
So
not even close.
Like it's purely been, this is part of our faith, and these young men want to do this.
But so to make sure that I'm being clear here, if college football has decided in recent years where there's been, because of the COVID extra year where a guy's had 6 years of eligibility and a bunch of guys, if you were a guy who came in any of the COVID years, you had 1 extra year because of COVID, and then if you got injured at any point, you probably got a medical red shirt. Oh, and also the red shirt rules changed in that time period where you also could play 4 games as a red shirt without having it count against your red shirt. So you could red shirt, you could medical red shirt, and you could have your COVID year, which means that everybody that was healthy was given 6 years, basically.
6 years to play 4, right? And some guys played 5 years in that 6 years.
And there were
the COVID not counting.
There were a lot of people that when Indiana won the championship this year, there were a lot of people, coaches included, that were kind of dismissive. They're just like, well, yeah, that's what happens when you got a bunch of 24-year-olds playing college football. That's what happens when you got a bunch of sixth-year seniors. And I was like, well, hold on. Was that really the benefit? Because if it is, everyone's going to try to emulate it. And if you're going to try to emulate it and this new thing goes through where your only loophole is military service or religious service or maternity leave, well, football players ain't getting maternity leave. I don't think a lot of guys are signing up to be Marines. Will coaches encourage people to you don't have red shirts anymore, but we can pause your clock if you'll go on a 6 month or a 1 year or a 2 year charity or religious or service mission. And you might be rolling your eyes and you might be thinking I'm being accusatory of the LDS Church and of BYU. It could not be further from that. But if teams and players and coaches start looking to, wait a minute, maybe this thing that we thought BYU was having to work against all these years, maybe that's something I can make work for me. We'll see.
I wonder if the biggest programs, the Alabamas, the Ohio States, the Michigans, although Michigan's going to get more players from Utah who are probably members of the church with Kyle Whittingham as the head coach. They're probably going to have more than that than they used to. But those kind of programs, I feel like those kind of programs are going to still do what they've always done, get the top high school players and the top transfers now in this new transfer portal world, regardless of what their age is, and dominate the sport. You know, maybe not winning national championship every year, one of those teams, but still being very relevant every year in that conversation. But I wonder if the teams that try to exploit this would be the Indianas, would be the University of Utahs, would be a lot of the teams in the Big 12, would be a lot of the teams in the ACC. They're like, we're trying to find a unique edge here because we can't do what the Blue Bloods can do, which is get the top high school player every year, regardless of position. So we're going to try to get the older players. Whether it was because of that or not, Indiana won a national championship with a roster like that.
And by the way,
that'd be my guess as the type of teams that are going to take that angle to maybe exploit that kind of loophole.
A lot of these reforms also are aimed at, well, how do we stop like the free agency thing from happening every year? There's a lot of push toward a one-time transfer, right? And so you can't in that model. You can't just say, all right, well, I'll just go get my guy and the guy I need in a transfer portal every single year, which, again, you have to start looking at internal tricks and tips and how to, like, maximize the stuff that the open market, if the open market becomes a little bit more restrictive, if the free agency market becomes a little bit more of a I don't know, non-starter, then you're starting to cultivate and figure out things internally. Good time to be a Mormon athlete, maybe. Shane on the old text machine says, what about rehab to gambling and other issues? Will that extend redshirt eligibility? The current proposal does not allow for any kind of redshirt or any kind of special treatment, at least on paper, for, well, I was in rehab for a year, but guess what? Somebody's attorney is going to have something to say about that. Well, my client, Brendan Sorsby, was in rehab for 6 weeks. He gets an extra year of eligibility. The Daily Dump is coming next. We've got a lot of stuff to get to still. What's the worst email notice that you've ever gotten in your life? I want you to think about that. I want you to text it in to me. 877-353-0700. The worst email that you have ever received. 877-353-0700 or at Real OC Sports. We'll hit that in the Daily Dump, but I'll tell you why. It's a sports story. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. The truck with the duck can take care of all the home services that you need, plumbing, heating, cooling. They'll take care of the furnace. They'll take care of the air conditioner. They'll take care of your drain cleaning. They'll take care of your pipes. They'll add that new bathroom if you need them to. Look for the truck with the duck. Tell them OC sent you when you go online and make your appointment at valleyplumbing.com. John Forsland from Sports USA, the Seattle Kraken play-by-play guy, formerly with the Carolina Hurricanes, and, of course, NHL Insider is going to join us in the 1 o'clock hour. Here on the Daily Dump, something I wanted to talk about, 877-353-0700, the worst email you ever got. James, have you ever had an email that was just like really terrible news?
I think the only thing, thankfully, it's unfortunate, but I say thankfully because it's not anything like I informed I was fired or anything like that. But still, unfortunate news is a coworker passing away type of thing. Probably the worst email I've had. And we had one recently with our president, Steve Johnson, unfortunately passing away last week.
Yeah, that's you never want to see that kind of news in an email, and it's always one of those things where you're like, man, a phone call is a better way to break news like that. Now, in the case of where you got to get a hold of 50
company thing,
70 people at a time, and you also don't want to create a hierarchy where you called someone first and then the next person found out that you don't want to do that. So totally acceptable that. But I mean, I've had job rejection emails, right, where you think you're in the running for like a particular position, and then it's like, oh yeah, sorry, we're going to go a different direction.
I've had like a couple of those have been in person, which you always appreciate, even though that still feels terrible. The majority I've had has been, I just haven't heard anything at all. Okay, and no news is bad news kind of thing with job rejection.
That's also slimy. Just let me know, because holding your breath and waiting and the nervousness with which you experience that process is not cool. Now, I would rather be disappointed immediately than hopeful for an extra 5 days until I realize, well, maybe they just went on vacation. You're like, rationalizing in your own mind why they haven't called you yet. Well, I'm sure they're just really busy, but they still plan on hiring me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're in a position to hire people or not, just tell them if they don't get the job. So that's what apparently happened to a bunch of U.S. men's national team hopefuls. Mauricio Pochettino is getting a bunch of pushback right now because the roster for the U.S. men's national team, which is supposed to be officially released today, I haven't seen. Has it come out during the show?
I haven't seen anything official as of yet, so I'll double check.
But The Athletic, The Guardian, a bunch of these news outlets that care deeply about the upcoming World Cup soccer rosters basically leaked the upcoming U.S. men's national team roster, and also found out that apparently players were informed that they didn't make it via email. Now, if you're doing a big group interview process, fine. There's a very small elite group of players that are even in the conversation to be part of the U.S. men's national team roster.
You're talking about a lot of players like Diego Luna, who played for the national team in the recent international friendly cycle last year. That's not probably 10 to 15 guys. Maybe I'm way ignorant on that, and it's way more. It's a way bigger pool than that were on the fringes.
Even if it's 50 guys.
Yeah.
So the roster is supposed to be officially announced today, but a full squad was reported by The Guardian over the weekend, and Diego Luna and Gozo are apparently not on the final roster. And taking it one step further, and we'll have to find out and confirm this, it's being reported that rather than a phone call they were just sent an email, hey, you didn't make it. To me, that would be something that would feel deeply, deeply personal, even if it's just like, hey, this is how we're doing it. This is the process. This is the most efficient way, because we didn't want to call Luna first and then call Gozo after, and we didn't want to call this guy, and then, there's some established sort of like real or imaginary hierarchy again on that. I don't want, if I'm trying to make my dream squad, which on some level representing your country for any athlete is a dream, in the World Cup, the largest and most relevant sporting event on the global stage, and you're being told sorry, especially when we've been talking to people for weeks and weeks, and everyone we talked to is just like, Luna's probably going to make this team.
Yeah, he obviously played really well last summer, and was a big part of, like, Mauricio Pochettino, the head coach. He put a lot of trust in him, so we felt really good about his chances to make this team. He started the season late because of injuries. He's had various injuries that have resulted in him not being in playing shape when the season started. You wonder how much of that played into this recent, quote unquote, fall from grace from being a very important player for the U.S. men's national team last summer to now left off the World Cup roster.
And to be fair, Gozo, I don't think, was ever really seriously in the running. He's not even been called up to U.S. men's national team duty, but Diego Luna played. He appeared in 17 of the last 18 men's national team games.
Scored a lot of goals, a lot of assists, yeah.
And it's Gozo that was just like, yeah, speaking to USA Today, speaking to The Guardian, which is a British publication, he's like, yeah, we got the email at the same time. And that's disappointing. That sucks. Now, again, if it's an injury situation, if it's fully justifiable, great. And maybe you don't owe Gozo a call.
Yeah,
but a guy that's been on the – if I play 17 of 18 games for you, I'm on your team. All right? I'm on your team.
I believe he started a lot of those games too. Like, he was a significant player at the end of last year's cycle, U.S. men's national team cycle of friendlies and various tournaments, world tournaments.
And if it's something that is pertaining to health, especially, how painless is that? It's as painless as it can be for a coach to call and just be like, man, we love what you've done, but we need healthy players.
And he's like, okay, I am healthy right now, and then the coach can say, yeah, but we feel better about the rest of these guys than we do about your health.
Herculez Gomez, who played in the 2010 World Cup and works for ESPN now, was like, if that's how they really found out, if all they got was an email, that's messed up. Again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know a ton about the process of how players are informed, but in my mind's eye, when you're talking about anything like this, regular season NFL rosters where you have 50-something dudes, and that means you have to cut 40-something dudes, they're all informed to their face.
Yeah. Called in the office, bring your playbook.
And it's very rarely some glamorous thing and some big heartfelt, but there's at least that level of respect shown. And yes, you probably can't call them all into the office and physically face them, but every single one of us, including Mauricio Pochettino, carries a supercomputer around in his pocket at all times. Okay? You could easily just be like, this part sucks, but I'm going to call the Moon Man right now, and I might have to explain to him why he didn't make the cut.
And he's, like you say, the reason could just be we want healthy players, and Diego could be like, I'm healthy right now, And he would have to say, yeah, but we trust the rest of these guys' health more than you right now because of the way things have gone for you to start this year. That sucks if you're Diego Luna. Xavier Gozo, like you said, local guy, by the way, from West Valley. How cool would that have been if he'd end up making the team. Dark horse guy, like you said, never played for the club, for the U.S. men's national team. Never even was thought to be a call up until his great start with RSL in his first pro season, right? So this is a guy that he's probably feeling like, I'm playing with house money here. If I get the call, I'm going to be ecstatic. If I don't, I'm going to be fine because I wasn't really expecting a call up. Next World Cup is when the disappointment would come for him if he's not on the team, probably.
Maybe I need to be more fair to an Argentine skipper who just doesn't really care the same way about that. Like, maybe there's a cultural element to it. Could just be personal. It could be cultural, where, I mean, he has been criticized for some of this in the past, like not being communicative with players, and he faces it and just says, I don't owe them an explanation. The World Cup feels like it's different, guys. By the way, apparently the official list from the U.S. men's national team is going to be released in 12 minutes. It's supposed to be 3 Eastern. So my hope is that we're dead wrong about all this, but we're not, because Pablo Mastroeni is on record knowing that they're not making the team, and Gozo obviously revealed that he didn't make the team and confirmed that Diego Luna got the same email at the same time as him. The Moon Man not in the World Cup. That sucks, and not something I wanted to talk about in the Daily Dump today. That is as bad of an email as you can get.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, what if, like, Clayton Keller ended up making the U.S. men's hockey team, but he was not on the Four Nations roster, and made us feel like there's some doubt about making the Olympic team because of that, right? Like, if that had been an email, no reports of that, right? We just kind of assumed no one even talked about it because no one made any big deal about how they informed players that they were cut from either of those teams. But, like, what the Olympics and World Cup, like, feels like at least a phone call, if not face to face.
James, when I got cut from the UFC, I was sitting in this chair, right? I got a phone call, and it said Dana White on my phone. And I was like, what? And we were in segment. We were on air. I went to break like 5 minutes early, and I called him back. And he was just like, hey, thanks for everything you did. You gave us some great fights, but we're going to, your contract's up. We're not going to re-sign you. And I was like, oh, come on, man. Like, that sucks. But that was a guy who had, at that time, 300, 400 probably fighters on the roster. And I promise I wasn't and by the way, he's not exactly like everyone's favorite guy, Mr. Best Friend to everyone, right? Even that's professionalism. Hey, I'm going to call this person and let them know that what they want to happen is not going to be happening right now. He could have sent me an email, and I am far less important, and I was far less important to everything that the UFC had going on than the Moon Man is the U.S. men's national team. I don't like this, Pochettino. Get him on the phone, James. Let's call him. Talk to him.
Mauricio, why'd you do this?
0626 on the old text line. I was once broken up with via email. 2002, 2003-ish, junior in high school, before social media. Texting still wasn't a thing. This was during the AOL Instant Messenger days, dial-up internet days. The girl I was dating at the time broke up with me in an email. That right there, that's a good, terrible email story.
When she had to wait for like 5 minutes for the internet to actually connect, she still was like, this is worth the wait to send this email because I do not want to do this in person.
That sound that the internet used to make when you were dialing in to connect to it.
That's terrible.
I'm still going to craft this email. I'm bothered by this. I'm bothered by this for RSL fans. I'm bothered by this for RSL players. I'm bothered by this for Team USA, because Diego Luna was important to the Team USA efforts and was like a nice little. He's a catalyst. He's not going to be there.
Samuel on the text line said he notes that they used Diego in a lot of their advertising leading up to the World Cup. So it's like that's an important player. Like you would think that he would garner more than an email on that.
There's going to be some person in Diego Luna's life that doesn't see this story, doesn't know this story, doesn't hear this story. Not someone close to him. But there's going to be somebody who's got his phone number, who sees him on a commercial for the U.S. men's national team for some World Cup thing coming up, and takes a photo of their TV or screenshots something, and it's like, dude, congratulations. And he's going to have to be like, I didn't make the team, actually. And that person's going to be like, what are you talking about? I just saw you in the USA uniform on a commercial. And he's going to be like, yeah, I know. Isn't that weird? Ouch, man. I hate this.
We still love you, Diego.
Get well rested and go win an MLS Cup.
Yeah.
Totally the same thing.
Show them.
Totally just as good.
And then be the best player on U.S. men's national team in the 2030 World Cup. That's the most devastating part of this. It's just like what we talk about guys with athletes that just miss qualifying for the Olympics, right? If 4 more years, you're no longer early 20s at that point, or late 20s. You're in your 30s, depending on whatever your age is. That's 4 years later. It's a significant amount of time.
The next World Cup will be hosted where? Do you know?
I don't know.
Morocco, Portugal, Spain.
Oh,
the Iberian Peninsula, Morocco kind of. That sounds awesome.
Little Mediterranean, Iberian Peninsula action. Okay.
Sorry, Moon Man. Sean O'Connell Show continues. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Spring is here. It's time for big air, huge splashes, nonstop action, and it's coming to Shields for the Dock Dogs event. Sandy on May 29th. That's this coming weekend. The Dock Dogs are taking over the Shields parking lot. Good fun for the whole family, wholesome, enjoyable. Dogs flying through the air, chasing their favorite toy off the end of a dock to splash down in the water. There's going to be food trucks. There's going to be great sales. There's going to be a bunch of vendors out there with their great merchandise. And, of course, you're in the parking lot of Shields, so go take advantage of the great deals. Maybe hop on the Ferris wheel. Check out all of the latest in the sports equipment. Your kid needs a new bike. Boom, they've got it. You need a new fishing pool, fishing pole. Great, they've got that. You need a kayak to get out there into the water. Shields truly is a one-stop shop for all things that you could possibly need in the sporting goods world. And the Dock Dogs event is happening all day on May 29th. You got to see it live. Distance, speed, height, and more importantly, the wholesome enthusiasm of a dog just doing what it loves. Come for the splash, stay for the fun, and maybe head into Shields and check out all the spring sales. Dock Dogs is happening in Sandy, May 29th, Shields parking lot. Dock Dogs ready to fly. Do not miss out. Also, don't miss out on the great deals that are happening right now at Advanced Window Products and AdvancedWindows.com. Again, the phone number is 801-850-9100. You should already have that saved in your phone. 4 decades of good business, clean business, serving Utah homeowners, fully transferable warranties. And right now, the financing options are so good. You can get brand new windows in your home for as low as $150 a month. $2,500 off 10 windows or more when you mention that you heard about it on ESPN 700. If you can get your payment down there in that $150, $200 range, the energy efficiency increase of your home might actually balance out this payment, so it's like getting your brand new windows for free. All the while you're beautifying your home, you're increasing the value of your home, and you're just making your life a little bit easier because you're not worried about the leaks, you're not worried about the draftiness. When the cold weather returns, you're not worried about the fact that you're leaking hot air. In the summer, you're not leaking cold air. It's just a better feeling knowing that your home is all sealed up tight, everyone stays snug, and it is energy efficient to save you money on the front end and the back end. They price the windows incredibly well. They install them in an efficient manner. The sales process is not pushy. They know what they've got. They want you to improve your home with the highest quality windows in the business, and it is all handled right here locally by Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, their company, Advanced Window Products, advancedwindows.com, or 801-850-9100 to set an appointment and tell them OC sent you. All right, I'm going to do my best to not get long-winded, so we're going to take another quick break here, and we're going to come back, talk a little NHL hockey. John Forsland is a former Carolina Hurricanes play-by-play man, he spent a lot of time with the Seattle Kraken now, and he's on Sports USA. John Forsland on the brink of elimination for what has been all year long the best team in the NHL. The Colorado Avalanche are down 3-0. Can they survive? We'll talk about that and much more next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in John Forsland. He is on the call for the Eastern Conference Finals on Sports USA. Carolina Hurricanes up 2-1 in that series. They've won back-to-back games in overtime. We are your home of the Stanley Cup playoffs, ESPN 792.1 FM. Game 4 will be Wednesday night. John, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk a little playoff hockey. Is this series shaping up in the Eastern Conference the way you thought it would?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that everyone expected, the Hurricanes to have an upper hand, and especially if they can control how they want to play, which if you throw out game number one, by and large, they've been able to do that. And last night they established a really good start on the road. They allowed the Canadians to come back a little bit, and you got to give them credit for hanging in there and going up against a team that's experienced and well-oiled and has a burn to get to the Stanley Cup final after having all of these consecutive failures in the conference final. So right now it looks like an experienced team that's ready to take the next step against a team that has played a lot of hockey, 2 7-game series, the emotions attached to all that, the youngest team in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I guess the puzzling part about Montreal is they have this terrific home ice atmosphere, but they can't match the energy in the building. It's just something that right now, whether it's in their head or whatever the case is, they seem to be up against it.
How much do you think the grueling 7-gamers affected this? Because Carolina got a lot more rest in these playoffs, and there's always that argument of rust versus rest. If you rest too much, it can be detrimental to you. But as you already mentioned, 2 7-game series to get to this point versus sweeping your way in is different.
Yeah, well, the way the Hurricanes are built and the way their coach, Rod Brindamore, expects them to play and trains them to play is with a real solid skating foundation, and rest will fuel that. So there really isn't, there was rust. I mean, the first game they were uncharacteristically bad defensively. They made a lot of mistakes. A lot of it was self-inflicted. They don't normally do that. But they're one of the best skating teams in the league. They're a possession team. They have high shot volume all the time. They're great off the rush. So all these metrics that you look at, they check those boxes. It's all based on their skating. And Montreal's a quick team too with a high level of skill. But right now the Canadians are doing a lot of chasing, and that's poison. That plays into the hands of the Hurricanes. The only way, and no one in this postseason has been able to figure it out, the only way Carolina has been beaten is by getting them out of their comfort zone, getting them away from leading the game, scoring first, dictating the terms, forcing them to take risks because they're trying to come from behind. If they have an exceptional amount of lead time, you're not going to beat them. So that's the bugaboo right now for Montreal that they're trying to overcome.
What is the atmosphere like? We're obviously a new NHL market, and people have been complimentary to the way that the Delta Center has showed up and been loud barn and all that kind of stuff. But what is the atmosphere like for the Carolina games? Like what is that house like?
It's very loud. I mean, and it always has been. And I have ties to that franchise. I mean, I joined the Hartford Whalers in 1991. Moved with the team in 97 and went through it all till 2020. And, over that time period, in 2002, they went to the Stanley Cup final. In 2006, they won the Stanley Cup. There was a conference final appearance in 2009 and a conference final appearance in 2019 that I was part of. And over the course of time, the crowd, grew into playoff hockey and became what they like to call the loudest house in the NHL. Now, listen, I go all over the league. Every place is loud. I think the atmosphere in the Bell Center in Montreal is second to none. In a short period of time, the Delta Center has emerged as a loud place, a place that could be intimidating down the road for opponents. But I think we're kidding ourselves with pro athletes. I think pro athletes enjoy being on the road and enjoy the opportunity to spoil the night for the crowd. So I don't think they're intimidated, but it can fuel the home team. And in Raleigh, it does. And, the Hurricanes had 53 wins this season, 29 of those at home. They've been an exceptional home team under Rod Brindamore. because, the way they play is infectious to the crowd and vice versa. And so, yeah, it's a great atmosphere in Raleigh, and it works for that market. There's no question. And what happens is, and you'll see that in your market, is that as you get deeper into the existence of the franchise, the crowds remain vibrant, but they also learn what the playoffs are all about. And that's what we see in Montreal. This is a generational national thing with the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, this goes over the course of 100+ years in terms of their fandom. So it's handed down, and as we march on through time and you see it in a new market, it'll continue to grow to get to that level where they understand what the playoffs are about from an experience standpoint, because they've experienced bitter losses. They've experienced triple overtime. They've experienced the exhilaration of winning a playoff round and then having to do it again. And if you're lucky to get deep into the Stanley Cup playoffs as a fan, you're going to do this for 2 months if you win it all. And that is really cool to watch a market go through it. And I look back at my time in Carolina in 06. It was an unbelievable experience because, as it's rich in college sports, but there's a hatred for, the Tar Heels, the Blue Devils, and the Wolfpack of NC State. But all of those fans under one roof can support the local hockey team and all come together and actually enjoy themselves as one. That's the difference in that market.
So watching the Western Conference, I don't know how much you've been able to watch, how much conflict there is with your schedule. I mean, I know they space out the games now, but the Western Conference Finals, we're watching the same Vegas Golden Knights team that eliminated the Utah Mammoth now taking it to the team that has been the best in the NHL all season long and has the Colorado Avalanche on the brink of collapse. I mean, they could be eliminated tonight. What is happening in the Western Conference?
That's puzzling because, the way Colorado played all year, nobody could even go there. There's no way you could start the playoff season and say, you know what, I think the Avalanche are ripe for an upset, because that's how exceptional they were in the regular season. And when you look at their depth, you look at their star power, you look at even their goaltending this year was exceptional. The numbers were absolutely off the charts. So why would anybody say that? I guess just to be an outlier and say maybe I'll be right and take a shot at it. Well, then you're going to be right in this situation unless we see a miracle. But you got to give Vegas a lot of credit. Golden Knights had an indifferent season. They always had the makings. They could never get there. And for the lion's share of the season, their goaltending wasn't any good. And, no matter who the coach is, there's an old saying in the sport that a great goalie makes a great coach, right? Doesn't work the other way around. And so Bruce Cassidy was ad nauseum trying to drill his message through to a team that became vacant. And a lot of it had to do with their goaltending. The goaltending was rebuilt during the season, and right around the time John Tortorella took over, Carter Hart came off the injured list, and he hasn't stopped. So that's the first thing that's in place for Vegas. And then everything else, they're an excellent team. And Jack Eichel and Mitch Marner have been absolutely fantastic. Their defensive core is solid. They have a good team game. They're winners. They're not far removed from the 23 Stanley Cup. So I think a lot of people just kind of washed away Vegas because of the division they play in. There wasn't a lot of respect given to the Pacific Division. And it seemed like the Titans were all in the Central, and they were. And, Colorado right now, I can't explain it. I watch it. I had a piece of Colorado in the first round with the Los Angeles series. Eddie Olczyk and I were on that. And it looked like, they were finely tuned and ready. And they've been finely tuned and ready since the start of the season, because they're one of the teams that's cup or bust. They're not building anything. And so this will be a major disappointment with ramifications should they lose tonight or lose the series. And it really is puzzling.
Sounds like McKinnon's going to play tonight, and there was some question about that. When you're forced with the decision of a, 70%, whatever it is, and we won't get that real number. I mean, a compromised McKinnon better than not having him at all?
Yeah, same thing with Makar. Like, Makar's not 100% at all. Actually, I believe he has 2 different injuries. We'll find out when this is over. And with McKinnon, it's the same thing. They get the players as ready as they can be, and if they can do it, and are willing to do it, and they're not at risk in terms of their career, they're going to play. And hockey players traditionally have been heroic when it comes to performance through injury in the Stanley Cup playoffs and the season for that matter. Because as you know, at the end of every season, part of the press conference at the end of the year with either the GM, the coach, or both, is this laundry list of injuries that they finally release to us, and you see what exactly is happening and who's lining up for off-season surgeries. McKinnon will gut it out. There'll be a strong push from Colorado. They're going to make a change, I understand, in goal and go with Mackenzie Blackwood tonight. So they're going to try and just do as much as they can to get a sniff, to get a little lifeline, and then take it home and go from there. Doesn't happen often. It's only happened a handful of times in NHL history, but it could. I mean, Colorado's that good; they could pull it off. But Vegas is determined to play their best tonight and just get some rest themselves and march on to the final.
What do you make of the decision to start Mackenzie Blackwood in goal?
Yeah, I think it's okay. I do. I think I don't really think it's that much against Wedgwood. I think it's just another way to wake up the team. Blackwood is capable of very good performances. He's kind of had an injury-plagued, decent season, not great. Wedgwood has carried the water, but you can see Wedgwood breaking down a little bit. And I mean, to be fair to him, these things just don't happen out of the blue. I mean, Scott Wedgwood has been a very capable NHL goalie throughout his career, but mostly as a number two. And he's probably as good a number two as you can find. But then when you get the number one job and everything that's attached to it, including playoff pressure as a starter, which he's going through for the first time, it can be too much. So it's not like they're moving on from Henrik Lundqvist or something like that. They're moving on from a guy, and I don't want to disrespect him, but I think it's fair, and I think that's why the decision has always been for Colorado, we have two. Tampa Bay enters a playoff round, and John Cooper has one, Andrei Vasilevsky. That's it. The Utah Mammoth have one goalie, in my opinion. That's it. So there's no real choice, in terms of where they're going to go. But in this case, there's always a goalie option. There's always a flip. There's always a move they could make, and now this is a coaching maneuver to wake up the team and also wake up Blackwood. This is his moment. I mean, he could grab it. He could get hot. He could be a difference maker, but he's got to play really well to outduel the guy at the other end, because Carter Hart has been outstanding in the playoffs.
If Colorado doesn't make it to the Stanley Cup final, it's 13 years in a row that the team with the best record, the President's Trophy team, does not make the Stanley Cup final. Now, is this some weird outlier freak streak, or is this something that NHL teams need to pay attention to and maybe make an adjustment based off?
That's a great question, and I was talking with somebody else about this today, and I'm of the belief that something has to be done with the playoff format. It doesn't appear that the commissioner's too interested in changing this playoff format. We used to have, the 1 through 8 like they have in basketball in each conference. Now we have a divisional situation. Way back when we had divisional playoffs, and it was changed when, oddly enough, when Bettman came on board in the early 90s to go to more of an NBA-style playoff. I think there needs to be a reward for the teams that perform as well as they do in the regular season. And I think as a league, we should protect the elite teams that play that way and give them every opportunity to be fresh and get an advantage at least in the first round. I think it's a sin to have teams like Dallas and Minnesota playing in the first round. I really do. Because to be fair, if we had another tournament now next week and say, for instance, pulled out the Dallas Stars and put them at full health, they might win the Stanley Cup against Vegas or Carolina. And that's just kind of the way it is. So I really think with the randomness that you have in hockey, there's parity, but there are elite teams that are positioned to win. And, it's a long time to play great in hockey if, say, you're Colorado. They have been unbelievably great from the very beginning of the season until now. That's October till the end of May. At some point, just your luck's going to run out. You're gonna run against a hot goalie. You're going to have this crop up. And if it happens in the third round, okay, that's kind of normal because that's where they should be. But when we see teams that are at the top of the league stumble in the first and second round, something's wrong. So I think they should look long and hard at this. Maybe there's a play-in situation we should go to as a league. Give the high-end teams a week to rest a little bit. I don't think they're going to get rusty. I think they're just going to, rest the wounds from the regular season, clear their minds mentally, and then take advantage of the weaker teams who are tired. Not the weaker teams that are so happy that they got into the playoffs. They have a real chance at an upset. This is one sport where, there's a lot of strategy in hockey, but there's a lot of luck too, if we're fair. And that's why it's not dominated by star players all the time. It's a collective thing. So I think it's a great question you bring up. I think it's something that needs to be looked at.
John Forsman for a couple more minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. And as a market and even as an individual show, we're figuring out, a lot of things about NHL hockey. And after we got our first taste of the playoffs, and I saw what Vegas was able to do to our beloved Utah Mammoth because, they're a little bit bigger, a little bit more experienced, a little stronger, really tough in some of those games for the puck to get through the neutral zone. And I was like, okay, there's a particular style of winning playoff hockey that might be a little bit different than regular season hockey. You've been around the game a lot longer. You're calling these playoff games. Is it that simple? Is there, you got to be able to play a certain style of hockey to win the cup? And what does it take?
Well, it takes a team that has, organizational depth. You got to take advantage of the trading deadline. Make sure that you've got players who are not playing that will probably have to play over the 2 months if you go all the way, and they're really good NHL players that can fill a gap for you, or give the coach some options to kind of change the lineup, whether it be opponent based or just trying to wake up the team and get more energy. That needs to be in place. So you got to have superior depth. You also have to have a degree of physicality because, it does get harder. There's scrums after every whistle. There's an intimidation side of things that really doesn't occur in the 1 through 82 because it's a one and done and you're moving on to another opponent. And the players really can't play that way all year because they'll break down and get injured and so on. And there's so much travel that's done, especially with Western Conference teams. You rely on your positional game. You rely on your goalie, your special teams. You rely on and your preparation, all of that to win in the regular season. But when it's, mano-a-mano situation, you're in the Stanley Cup playoffs, it's one team, it's 2 weeks. The coaches are game planning against each other. Everybody knows the secrets. Everybody knows the tendencies. What's the determining factor? How tough is your team? Can your team get over the hump as a group? And when I say that, I mean even your skilled players. Are your skilled players tough enough to understand there's another step? And it's not going to be easy, and you got to fight for your ice. And they have to be supported. So maybe a team like Utah looks at that moving down the road. Maybe they look to get a little bit bigger in their 1 through 12 with their forwards. Maybe they're going to have to sacrifice a younger star-type player along the way to acquire something like that of star value that's just a little bit different. That's going to help a team win in the playoffs. It's different. There's no question about it. It's in many ways the same game, but you're breaking it down against one team for 2 weeks, and that's all it is. And when you have that in a contact sport where it's every other day, animosities start to build. There's a true hatred between the two teams by the time they get at the end, and then when it's over, they respect the heck out of each other. That's what the playoffs are all about, and that's why the fans love it as much as they do, because it's just another step. The game gets energized. It gets put on steroids, if you will. So that's what it is, and I think those teams and the Utah franchise is building. And what we see in the salary cap era is teams that are in total rebuilds, teams like Utah that are pretty close and are going to try and make that step. And then you've got the Colorados and the Dallases and Carolinas and Florida and teams Tampa Bay. Those are the teams that are in a different vein because they've already gone through the decade or so of building to get to that point. So that's what it is. And I'll tell you what, when you see it, and you see a team win a playoff round in your market, and your fans are going through it, and then you do it again, you do it again, and you get to that fourth round. There is nothing like it. It's unbelievable.
John, how many Winter Classics have you had the pleasure of being at?
Oh, quite a few. I believe a half dozen or so in some stadium games. The best one I ever did was the Centennial Classic in Toronto, Detroit and Toronto, the 100th anniversary of the league back in 2017. That was a remarkable day, in Toronto. And just, I'll tell you what, the game we had in Seattle with Vegas a couple of years ago was absolutely incredible at T-Mobile Stadium. The game you guys are going to have is going to be special, and it's just it's an opportunity when you're there to soak in the entirety of the atmosphere. That's what I would say to the fans. If you're there, the players do it too. They understand what they're doing. It's a regular season game for 2 points. It isn't an exhibition, but in many ways it is, because it's showcasing a beautiful game outdoors where the roots of the game are and have been. So, this is everybody becomes a little boy. And when the women play, they're little girls again, it's just an unbelievable experience for everybody involved. And since the league has done this, they've done a lot of great things, but this is one thing that will never lose its luster in the market. I think they're probably going to have to look at their scheduling a little bit and try and get it away from other things that are also going on in and around that day on television and so on, because it was a standalone event at the beginning with the help from NBC, and that really pushed it in a great place. That's a different conversation. Basically, it's a wonderful event that you'll thoroughly enjoy, and no matter what the weather is, the NHL can make it work. So it's a great thing.
If you could have any player, I'm turning you into a GM, and I'm going to give you any Mammoth player to build around for the next, we'll say, 5 or 10 years. Who's that guy right now on this Mammoth roster?
For me, it's Logan Cooley. I just think he's going to continue to grow as a player. Physically maybe a little bit, but most importantly, I see him taking steps. I liked what he went through this year in the playoffs, where he was challenged. He's what we were just talking about. He's an individual example of a skilled player who's gone through a couple injury situations at a young age, but he's going to matriculate into this guy that understands the rigors of the playoffs and succeed for it. So I think you've got but you have a collection of really good young pieces there. Gunther's an unbelievable game breaker. I mean, he reminds me of, if you go way back, Mike Bossy, who played for the New York Islanders back in their heyday. He had that kind of shot, that he had the big one-timer on the weak side, break the game open. But I think Cooley can give you, a variety of different things from his skill set that will parlay into, I hope he becomes a superstar. I think he could. I really do. So that would be the guy for me in the central position as a center. That's how I see it.
All right, last thing before I let you go. Do we see Colorado survive tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were going to win the other night, and 3-0 and 49-0 in that situation, and then they lose. I don't know. I still think they will for whatever reason, so I'll go with a yes, although I'll be surprised if they do. I really do. I think when teams are in a position to close, especially an experienced team like Vegas, they understand what that's all about, because that's another step too. That's another, for a young franchise, that's that, situation where they have to, what do we do now when we're up in a series and we're supposed to win? How hard do we have to play to get it done? Vegas will, it's a cliche, but they'll have to play their best to win the series in the fourth game against a team that's got a lot of pride and a lot of talent. It's unfortunate that McKinnon's probably not 100%. Cale Makar's not. I don't believe Nichushkin's going to play tonight. So they're dinged up. but they might be able to do it. They might have another opportunity. I think they've earned it. Get a lifeline and see if they can make something happen in Game 5. So I'll just call it that way, and I'll likely be wrong again. That's what I do.
Well, be comforted in knowing that at least around here we're wrong a lot more often than you are. We terrible on the predictions, but
that's okay. It's a hard business making predictions. I'll tell you that.
John, appreciate you giving us some time. Have a great call, and we'll chat again soon.
Thank you. My pleasure. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
That's John Forsland, Sports USA on the NHL Eastern Conference playoffs. Carolina's up 2-1 in that series. We will have that game, Montreal versus Carolina, on Wednesday night, right here on ESPN 700 and on 92.1 FM. The puck will drop at 6 on Wednesday for that one. Your home of the Stanley Cup playoffs right here on Utah's #1 sports talk.
Game 4, you mentioned it. Game 4 Western Conference Final tonight as well at 6. Well, starting at 6:30, excuse me. Kind of a weird. Every game's been at 6 except for tonight. The puck will drop at 7. So we got pregame coverage for you at 6:30. The Vegas has not blinked in these potential closeout games. We saw the blowout win over the Mammoth at the Delta Center, unfortunately, in the first round. They did the same thing to the Ducks in the second round. Just like John said, it feels like you should be like, Colorado's going to win a game. But Vegas has been dominating in these closeout games the way that the Knicks have dominated in the NBA closeout games so far. Should be interesting to see if they can continue that or if the Avs can extend the series tonight.
The official Team USA, U.S. men's national team for the upcoming World Cup, they're being announced right now. They're trotting them all out onto a stage, onto a dais of sorts. Roster reveal 2026 is happening right now. So we'll tell you who's there and who's not, more pointedly for the RSL fans out there. Plenty left to get to on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. James, what city is this roster reveal in that we're watching right now? Do we know? U.S. men's national team roster reveal show
It
happening.
is New York City.
I've heard of that place. I got to tell you, Fox, if you're going to do the roster reveal in New York City, and that is the backdrop, one of the most iconic skylines. You can't throw a Statue of Liberty back there or something? What are we
I know.
doing?
I felt like I needed to look it up because we were watching NBA Today, ESPN, and they're still in Cleveland, and they're just they're not, like you said, they don't have iconic New York City Empire State Building, even the Chrysler Building type stuff in the background of this. I'm like, wait, are they doing this in Cleveland too? And then they about went to a commercial break and they showed all the New York sites. And I'm like, oh, they're on the harbor in the Hudson Harbor there in New York City.
All right, I guess that is the Brooklyn Bridge right behind them, but the angle, it's a tight angle when they're actually showing the players. So all you can see is like you don't see the support towers. All you see is the road of the bridge.
Yeah, in the sky mostly.
All
so
right,
it is.
well,
but you're right. Like,
now I'm
kind of hard to tell at first.
I'm going to have to fight against the urge to be kind of a hater on the U.S. men's national team right now because they left off Diego Luna. It's not the fault of these players. They're representing our great nation in the upcoming FIFA World Cup. We are a host nation along with Canada and Mexico. But this process, there's a bad taste in my mouth now because Diego Luna and everyone else who was rejected, including Gozo, they were sent an email. I don't like that. We got a couple of great responses on the text line, by the way. I said, give me the worst email that you've ever gotten, 877-353-0700. I got a shout out 3185 on the text line. This is as bad as an email can get. My girlfriend emailed me on my mission, told me she was dating and would probably marry my best friend. That's a bad one. That's as bad as Diego Luna getting the email that he didn't make this year's World Cup squad because he's 22 years old. When he's 26 years old, he's going to be on the World Cup roster. Still, he's played 17 of the last 18 caps for the U.S. men's national team. You probably should have put him on that team, on this year's team, and I feel bad that he got left out. Hopefully it ignites some sort of vitriolic fire under him, and he's able to translate that to great success for Real Salt Lake when the MLS comes back. Now we've got a concert, an impromptu concert of sorts happening at the roster reveal show.
Because, of course, all of these events have to have some sort of musical act.
Okay, so this is something that I have dealt with. Unfortunately, we had previous ownership made us do this in the PFL, where you'd like stage a sporting event and cram a concert into it. You'd have like some random rapper show, and I'd be like, what are we doing? Nobody tunes into the roster reveal show wanting to know the players that are going to be on the U.S. men's national team. If you're a hardcore diehard, you probably already know. If you're a casual fan, you're like, yeah, okay, I'll tune into this. You're tuning in to see the players, to hear from the players, maybe the coach. You're not watching for Gunna, the performer, the rapper. That's the name of this.
Who's pretending to be a soccer fan because he's probably not a soccer fan. This is the United States. Maybe he is.
Who knows?
It certainly popularity has grown a ton, especially international soccer. One interesting thing, and again, a couple of soccer novices here. So if you're listening and going, of course, how did you not know this? Just give us a little break here. Maybe if you want to text in, give us a little more information on this particular thing. That'd be great. Malik Tillman and Florian Balogun, their hometowns are not in the United States. Tillman is from Germany. Balogun is from London. Now, did a quick search here. Balogun was born in Brooklyn. Okay, so he's lived internationally a lot. Fine. Tillman's interesting. No, at least in the little quick research I've been able to do, no known tie to the United States, but able to represent the United States at the youth level and now at the senior national team level. That's interesting to me. That's I feel like that's a new phenomenon for Team USA soccer.
Here's what I don't like about it, right? Because you know what this suggests? You don't have to, like, the talent pool is thin enough that it's easier to make it for Team USA than to make it for England or whatever, or to make it for Germany. So I'm gonna go make Team USA. This is what people do with, I guess there's a couple exceptions now that are financially motivated, but this is what you do if you're an American who can't make, like, the U.S. track team in the Olympics. You're like, yeah, well, but my mom is from Colombia, so I'm gonna run for Colombia.
Yeah, my great grandmother immigrated from Nigeria, so I'm gonna represent Nigeria.
You go to the place where it's like it's a little bit easier to make the team. That aggravates me even more, because there's a, whether valid or invalid, it suggests they're like, oh yeah, you're not going for the hardest team to make.
Yeah.
That
you got cut by the hardest team, so you're gonna fall. Your fallback's gonna be the U.S. men's national team.
I don't want to be the fallback team for anybody.
No, we're United States of America. Although, 250.
I guess we should be careful about how there's a lot of identity politics about who's American and who's not American, and if you're born here, is that enough? If your parents are born here, are immigrants Americans? I want you to know I believe in the American dream, and I think that everybody should be allowed an opportunity to make a better life for their family here on these golden shores of the United States of America. But when it comes to the U.S. men's national team, I want your hometown to be Salt Lake City bleeping Utah, all right?
Yeah, no, I only bring that up as to say I don't know that I've noticed that at the U.S. men's national team before, and if there have been many other examples, then I told you I don't pay that close attention to soccer, so that's how I missed it. But it's interesting to me. Obviously, there's enough of a tie to the United States for Malik Tillman in particular to be able to represent the U.S. and the U.S. men's national team, and I hope he scores like 50 goals. Golden Boot, Malik Tillman. Let's go.
All right, guys. The mild weather of spring is going to run out on us. 5-6 weeks from now, we're going to be baking in the sun, and we're going to be flirting with 100-degree days, and you're going to need your air conditioner to be pumping, and more importantly, you're going to need the windows in your home to not lose all that cool air because they're single pane, they're thin, they don't have the right balance of proper sealants on the frames, and the panes themselves being double paned with that argon gas in the middle that makes sure that you don't lose energy. 5 or 6 weeks is about the amount of time it takes for you to set up your appointment with Advanced Window Products, for them to manufacture those windows and for them to install those windows. So before the dead, terrible heat of summer, you can still save the energy efficiency of your home by getting new windows. The spring window special at Advanced Window Products is happening right now, $2,500 off, 10 windows or more. Discounts can be prorated on fewer than 10 windows. Look, 4 decades of award-winning service, lifetime guarantees that are fully transferable. The warranty on these windows follows the home, follows the window. It doesn't follow you and the credit card you pay for it with. These are truly guaranteed for the life of the home. They've got window coverings for you if you need those. The process is all handled right here in-state, in-house, in the city, and there's never a middleman that's trying to run you around and say, oh, no, that's somebody else's problem. They are accountable for the manufacturing process, the installation process, the whole process at advancedwindows.com and 801-850-9100. Tell them OC sent you and make that house look better, make that house feel better. And when I say feel better, I mean hold the warm air in the winter, keep the cool air in the summer. Make your home more energy efficient with the best vinyl windows in the business at advancedwindows.com. All right, I've got some concert tickets to give away next. I've got an update on the enhanced games. Remember this? Like in Olympics where doping is legal, the results were not exactly as impressive as some people thought they would be. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. I've got 2 tickets to Alter Bridge coming to the complex in November. 877-353-0700. If you could tell me, this was something from our conversation with Gordy Chiesa, so hopefully you were listening to the whole show today, the all-time playoff triple-doubles leader in the NBA, who had more triple-doubles in the NBA playoffs than anybody ever. 877-353-0700. Crosstalk brought to you by our friends at Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100, $2,500 off, 10 windows or more. Get the process started today. Takes about 6 weeks before they're fully installed in your house, so do it now. And, you'll have, when that heat, that terrible dog days of summer heat is beating down on your home, you'll have efficient windows that keep the cool air in. Start the process now at advancedwindows.com. All right, time to talk to Spence Checketts. The Drive is coming up next right here on Utah's #1 Sports Talk. Hi.
Hello, Sean. Happy Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, it was a great weekend.
What'd you do? I want the breakdown.
Okay, so got home from Brussels on Sunday. Great fights Saturday night in Brussels. Got home on Sunday, drove directly to Huntsville, spent the time up in Huntsville, out on the lake, splashing around, had some fun with friends, with my kids, and slept like 4 hours on Sunday night because the kids were just in full friend sleepover play mode. And, just gritted it through yesterday, so it was awesome.
Do you get along with your children's friends' parents?
Well, interesting. We're in the phase of life right now where the children are mostly introduced to the children of our friends.
Oh, okay.
So it's like,
all right.
And thankfully, their kids are fun, and my kids get along great with their kids. But, like, we were with my old roommate, his lovely wife. They've got kids our same ages, basically. And then my wife's best friend she grew up with she's been best friends with this person since she was, 2 years old.
Okay, that's cool.
She's got kids that are a little older than our kids, but all the way down. And so we get along great with them as couples, and the kids all get along good.
See, that's key, because forced friendships through your children's relationships I've found to be borderline impossible.
Yeah, that's going to be tough when the kids are choosing the friends, and it's like, this is my friend, and this is my friend's parents, and then I'm just like, that parent sucks.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But I have to be nice because you like the kid. That's, yeah.
And of all the things, of all the things that I'm bad at, and there's a good list, okay? Maybe at the top
is pretending you like people.
Is pretending that I want to be around anyone, quite frankly, let alone people that I'm not choosing to spend time with.
Fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So that's a good place to be. I was a father young, and my friends weren't necessarily in that space. So that was a dynamic that I had quite a bit.
And I'm an old dad.
Yeah. And
so I'm going to be the cantankerous old people are going to be like, hey, your grandpa, and that's fine. You golfed this weekend?
I did. Not well, but had a good time.
I got a text message this weekend, and shout out to Jan, our Utah Golf Radio Jan.
Yeah.
Because former UFC champion Tyron Woodley was in town for whatever reason, and he knows that I love Salt Lake and I love
golf.
I love people enjoying their time in Salt Lake City. So he's like, hey, I'm trying to get some tee times. It's Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm trying to get some tee times. And I'm just like, all right, you got like a foursome? He's like, I'll go solo. I'll jump on in a foursome, whatever. Just if you can get me some tee times, that'd be awesome. Now, I'm not exactly the #1 golf insider, but we have access to those people.
Yes, we do.
And so Jan got it hooked up, but he was solo. He was just hopping in, and he's famous, very incredibly famous in the fight world because he was a UFC champion. There was a time where he was the best 170-pound fighter on planet Earth.
My weight class. Is he a grown-up or is he a kid? Just out of curiosity.
He is now over 200 pounds, so he's a grown-up.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I wonder how, because he went on Sunday and on Monday. I want to know if the people on the golf course realize that, the random handsome dude that hopped into your foursome was at one point the baddest dude on the planet.
Have you talked to him? Do you know if he was recognized?
I haven't talked to him about that yet.
Because we kind of have kind of a sneaky big MMA undercurrent culture here.
Yeah. I wonder. And he's a great dude. He's awesome. I love the guy. He's super easy to get along with. He's from Ferguson, Missouri.
Okay.
So where he grew up, his background is a lot different than Salt Lake City. And so I wonder what the experience was like.
I'll tell you, it's a miracle Jan got tee times. I mean, these days you have to be online at 8 a.m. 1 week prior to the day you want to play, and you have to be on the app at 8, because if you're on the app at 8:20, the times are gone. My initiative is # shrink the game, because ultimately what you run into, and we ran into this over
Shrink the game. Don't grow it.
Forever it was # grow the game. It's okay, we're good. We're all set at this point.
We've grown it too much.
Because now what happens is 5.5, 6 hour rounds. And all due respect, everybody should be able to play golf, but there are certain courses you should go play if you don't really know how to play. So over the weekend, and there's always like 1 or 2 groups that just blow it. And typically it involves a double date where someone's trying to learn how to play.
Oh, fun.
And asking their partner very intensely to teach them how to play. And then you run into partners that are very frustrated that after the 5th swing, we're not moving on. So we had a group over the weekend of beginners. And they were walking, and they had their umbrellas, and they had their fits.
Okay.
Dresses. And, you know, we're about 3 groups behind these people that are just learning.
Okay.
And I watched one of them address the ball, take 7 practice swings, and then duff the ball like 5 yards, walk up, 7 practice swings, duff the ball 5 yards. And this guy in the group behind us yells, "Pick up the damn ball!" at the top of his lungs.
So hold on.
Yeah.
Can we become business partners on something?
What do we got?
Every other sporting event, there is a beginner's thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you go to a gym right now, they'll sign you up for a beginner's jiu-jitsu, beginner's kickboxing, beginner's boxing. They don't just throw you in with everybody else for your safety and edification and that of the people around you, because nobody wants to deal with your novice baby giraffe lack of coordination.
And you might get seriously hurt.
You and I are going to start a new tour where there's going to be a course a week that takes all the beginners on like a Wednesday or a whatever.
Okay.
We're going to do this. Okay.
It's not a bad idea.
We're going to rope it off. And if you know how to golf, you can't go to Old Mill this Wednesday, right? And if you are a bad golfer, you can't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
I'm going to save the game of golf, and I don't even like it.
There is something to this, because you would be doing the market a real service. Golf takes a lot of time anyway. And so if you're in for an extra hour, hour and a half, I mean, now we're dealing with divorces and breakups and real life consequences when you tell your partner, okay, I'll be back in 4.5, 5 hours, and 7 hours pass.
It's still bananas to me that any of you guys are allowed to carve out that amount of time and that your wives are not just stabbing you in the neck when you get home. That is crazy.
Well, stabbing in the neck would be aggressive, but you know, the implication is accurate. And that's why most of the really good golfers out there either don't like their wives or have been divorced and are single. Like, there are a lot of really, really good golfers that just don't like being home. Because otherwise, and especially if you have young kids, like my friends right now who have younger kids, it's hard to get them out because that's a lot of time to be away when you need to be home tending to your fatherly duties.
Yeah.
But that's why most of the best golfers aren't fathers and husbands, you know, unless you're a pro, because, okay, yeah, this is my job and you have 2 commas in your bank account forever, so you can deal with me traveling and playing the game. But if you're just like a weekend warrior just grinding it out there, chances are there's somebody at home either mad at you or you don't give a rip the way they, as far as how they feel, is my assertion.
Golf is a study on human nature. I am very eager to hear your thoughts on Diego Luna being snubbed from the U.S. men's national team. I want to give you the proper amount of time to address that on your show because I know it'll be a big thing. Make sure you stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts. Thank you for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. We will do it again tomorrow on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.